Hello YouTube, welcome to day 2, episode 2 of Very Raw, candidly sharing what I'm learning and what I'm doing as I'm building my fashion brand Silva Collection. This past week I focused a lot on content. That kind of just led me down a complete deeper path for my brand. I think a lot of people struggle when it comes to content because you feel like all you're doing is showcasing your product, and that can get very old, very fatiguing, very repetitive after a while if you're just building a catalog of your product. There's so much more you can do with content, but that requires that you really understand what your brand is about. I've been thinking a lot about why designers like Alexander McQueen, Vivienne Westwood, Galliano, they've been on the scene for a long time. They started, back in the 80s, 90s. They are still referenced so much. They are so iconic. And then you think of a brand like, let's say, Poly. Nothing against that brand. I don't personally shop there, but nothing against them. It's just a brand that pops up on my feed a lot. I care about that brand. That brand is not iconic. That brand does not convey any emotion. That brand is a brand that I think about if I ever wanted to get some cheap, inexpensive, one-time wear clothing. And it's not about the cost, it's about what the brand stands for. It's about what the brand represents. When you think about somebody like McQueen and Westwood and what they were doing when they launched their brands and how they were anti-establishment, anti-commercialism, they were doing the opposite of what everybody else told them to do, of what everyone else thought was pretty. You see those clips of Westwood being laughed at when her collections came out, and they were just there was so much conviction in what they were doing that they did not care. And their brand, it stood for something. It was for a very particular person, and it was very clearly not for other people. This sort of polarity and knowing exactly who you are as a brand, who and what you stand for, and who the enemy of your brand is. Having a very clear understanding of your customer, their life, their psychology, their desires, their fears, the type of aspirations they have. All of these things allow you to create content that is not just about the clothes, but it's about the person, what you stand for, what you're fighting against. You're really able to bring those values into your content and connect with your audience at a deeper level and build customer loyalty that way and build a brand that is not just pumping out clothes. Rise of fast fashion, and with the access to information, so many people are like, I just want to make clothes, I want to start a brand, and their only thought is, I want to make clothes, but they're not thinking about the brand itself. And for the longest time, when I first started, I only thought about it as the aesthetic of my brand. Like, oh, what is the vibe? What is the aesthetic that I want my brand to have? And that's good, but that alone is not enough. So for me, I spent several hours across several days answering questions about brand, about my customer. When you put this down on paper and you really give it some thought, it'll become very clear who your brand is for. It makes it much easier to design, not feel like you have to cater to everybody, and it makes it much easier when it comes to creating content, because now you have so many pieces of inspiration that you can pull from. For example, when I was thinking about my customer, I made a whole list of what are her ambitions in life, what does she want, what does she desire, what is she afraid of, what do I want people to feel when they see my brand. I also made a list like, my brand is this and my brand is not this. I created a mood board. Asked myself, why does every image of this mood board belong here? What does this say about my customer? You can even use AI to kind of help you articulate things a little better, or to find common threads or patterns and things like that. But when you go through this exercise and you just dig deeper beyond just the aesthetic, there's still so much more you can uncover about your customer, so that when you make content, you ask yourself, is it speaking to this person? What is this piece of content doing for my brand? Is it giving my customer permission to want it all, to want to dress a certain way, to want to achieve a certain goal. Maybe she's a small town girl wanting to live that big city dream life, and create content about that. I can create content around her fears of settling, her fears of being in relationships and friendships that no longer serve her, right? All these different things. The thing is that the content you make for your brand does not need to be about the clothes. People need to buy into an identity. When they buy into that identity, when they can see their values, your brand, that begins the relationship. That then says, okay, let me go see what this person is selling. Let me go see how I can continue to buy into this identity by maybe buying into the clothes. And it seems like, oh, that's doing too much. You're just making clothes. Yes, you're just making clothes, but so is everybody else. What you want is customers who can see themselves in your brand, who want to continue to support you. Yes, because they love the clothes, but also because they know that your brand is an extension of who they are. That's what's going to separate the brands that are always chasing the next customer. There's no loyalty there. They're never going to be more than a brand that just makes clothes. Think about it. Think about a brand like, okay, I said Oh Polly, right? What can you tell me about this brand? By looking at their social media, by reading their website. Oh, clothes for what? For partying, to make women feel confident, probably something like that. And personally, when you're a little bit more of a sophisticated shopper, you're not drawn to things like that. Versus like Billy Dane McQueen's, you know, he was like all about just self-expression and turning dark things into something beautiful and using your pain as art. F you. I mean, he would have the models just go out and flip off people on the runway, right? It was just bizarre, but it was like, do not tone yourself down to make other people feel comfortable. If you know his story, you know he was very troubled, and he kind of was like, okay, I'm not going to shy away from that. I'm going to take that raw emotion and turn that into something beautiful. And even the references for some of his collections were just dark and chilling. It's very evident what he wanted to do with his brand. And I think we've kind of lost that with brands today. I think because of the accessibility to e-commerce, because it's so easy to just say, oh, I want to make cute clothes and I'm just going to start a brand and sell it. But if you're like, man, I want a brand that is a legacy business, okay, like it's passed on to my kids 100 years from now, still exists, that people are like referencing it. You really have to think about your brand beyond just the clothing. And of course, the best way to kind of convey who you are as a brand now these days is through content and using platforms to tell your story, your personal story, your brand story. And I would say that there's designers and then there's people who make clothes. Technically, they're doing the same thing. They're sketching, they're doing patterns, they're manufacturing, but artistically and vision wise, they are worlds apart that you can't even compare. If you're just starting your brand, or you're thinking about starting your brand, or even if you've had your brand for a while, you need to think about, what do I want to do? Do I want this to be a long-term legendary brand with clear values, with a clear customer, with a clear direction, with a clear point of view? Or am I okay just being more fun and light and I just make clothes? I'm of the opinion that only one will be around 50 years from now. So how do we get started off with a conversation about content, but as somebody who also has struggled with content, I just kept asking myself, why? It's like, well, I don't know what to post. Why? Well, because I don't have that many products. How can I still continue to speak to my audience even if I don't have new products to put out every single day, every single week? That just led me to think, okay, well, it's not just about making trending reels. It's not just about getting the most views or going viral, but it's like, how can I really build an aligned audience? And I had to ask myself, well, what does an aligned audience mean to me? How can you answer that if you don't know anything about your customer besides her gender and her age range and maybe her location? When you go through the exercise, and if you're not sure where to start, I would highly recommend asking Claude or ChatGPT, whatever you use, and explaining, like, I'm building this brand and I really want to understand my customer, what my brand stands for, my values, etc. And then have it maybe give you a list of questions to think about and pick the top 10 questions, answer those, and then kind of build from there. I mean, it takes time. When you do it, you feel free. You will have so much clarity. You will have a clear point of view, and you will be so excited, and the ideas will just start coming. And if you want me to share like what I did, let me know if that would be helpful. Anyways, that's day 2. A lot, that was kind of my biggest focus for the last few days, was getting very clear on that, because I did not have that clarity when I first started my brand, and it was apparent. I was just chasing views, chasing trends, and I didn't like that, because I'm like, I know I'm better than this, and I know I want more than this. Start working on that. Do not put it off. It's going to be the biggest game changer for your brand. I can guarantee it. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up with more videos like this. I'm sharing in real time what I'm learning, what I'm doing as I'm building my fashion brand, in the hopes that it might help you if you're planning to do the same. See you next time.